Good evening and welcome to the Grande Prairie City Council meeting for Monday, September 10th, 2018. I'd ask everyone in attendance to rise and join us in singing O Canada.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you to the National Film Board of Canada for the images of our country and to our very own Grande Prairie Boys Choir alumni for the audio. We'll move on to the adoption of previous council meeting minutes. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I move that we adopt the City Council meeting from Monday, October 27th, 2018.
Sure. Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. And I think we'll make that August, though.
August. Did I say October?
Just trying to fly through this year. Hey, yeah, it feels like it could be October. It feels like it could be October. Okay, August 27th. Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Are there any errors or omissions that we need to correct? Seeing nobody ringing in, then I'll call for the vote on that set of minutes. Please vote. Thank you. And that motion carries, and we'll move on to the adoption of the agenda. Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that Council adopt the agenda as presented with an amendment for item 8.1, interim CAO and CAO recruitment.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Bressie. Any discussion or debate on the agenda as amended? Seeing none, then I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries as well, and that brings us to the delegation portion of our agenda. This is an opportunity that exists at every regular meeting of City Council. It's an opportunity for anybody in the community to come forward and address Council on any community-related matter. And we do love it when people let us know ahead of time that they wish to come and speak to Council, but it's absolutely not a requirement. We did have one group that let us know that they wish to speak, and so we'll start there and ask if there's anybody else afterwards. And the first group was Modern Leaf Group Incorporated, wished to be here to present to Council. Are there any representatives from Modern Leaf Group? I don't see anybody coming forward, so I will ask if there's anybody else that wishes to address Council this evening. Sure, if you'd like to. So for everybody that's watching, our routine is to please come forward, introduce yourself, and anybody else that's going to join you at the delegation table. For a recording secretary, we'll have you maybe no more than 5 minutes maximum, and towards the end, after you've concluded, Council will have an opportunity to ask any questions they might have. Welcome.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm Chris Cipolla. I'm the chair of the board for the Grande Prairie District Chamber of Commerce, and with me is Tanya Oliver, brand new CEO of the Grande Prairie District Chamber of Commerce. We wanted to come tonight and speak in favor of supporting the amendment to bylaw C-164 to...
Ms. Cipolla, sorry, just a second. I wasn't aware of the topic that you're going to be speaking on, and I think Councillor Minhas, did you raised with me ahead of time about Modern Leaf Group, and so are you declaring a conflict of interest? Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Minhas. Councillor Minhas is declaring conflict of interest, and we'll exit the council chamber. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, we wanted to speak in favor of that amendment. We believe that lifting the cap, we believe the City of Grande Prairie is continuing to create bylaws that promote business investment with an open for business mindset when we do not put a cap on businesses. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, thanks very much. Any questions for the delegation? I would have one, I guess.
Certainly.
Does the Chamber have any concerns about reputational risk for our community when people from across the country might move here, recognizing they might come from jurisdictions where there might not be as large a number as we may have in terms of cannabis stores?
Sure. I think that's a really broad question, and unfortunately, I don't believe that I'm qualified to make a prediction on that. But I think that one of the things we noted is because of the restrictions on land use, we felt that that was a great way to kind of limit the amount of stores if that's something that we were looking to do. And we felt that that was a good compromise. So rather than saying there are this many licenses available, it's more like, well, let's let businesses be businesses and be able to work in the open market and do what they do best.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the delegation? Seeing none, thanks very much, ladies, for being here this evening.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. So again, if there is anybody else that wish to come forward and address council, and maybe if there's anybody else here to speak on cannabis-related issues, recognizing that Councillor Minhas has declared a conflict of interest, this would be probably the best time to come forward to speak to any cannabis-related issues. Is there anybody else that wishes to come forward? Seeing none. Was there anybody else that wished to, actually, seeing none, then I will call Councillor Minhas back. Oh, sorry, was there somebody else that wished to come forward? Okay, thanks very much. And so we'll call Councillor Minhas back. Thanks, Councillor Minhas. And so we'll ask if there's anybody else that wishes to address council on any other community-related issue. So you sort of saw the routine there. If you'll just introduce yourself and give your position to council, appreciate it. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Crystal Surratt. I am the chair of the Hillside Neighborhood Association, and I would like to speak on behalf of the neighborhood regarding the land use bylaw C1260-92. And I am speaking against the land use bylaw change for the reasons that the increased traffic due to the midstream industrial facility is unreasonable for what is both an artillery.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, especially when you were just getting started, and I know it can be intimidating to come up there.
Yes.
We do have a section where we're going to specifically discuss the land use bylaw amendment, and there's a public hearing for that where I actually have to ask if there's anybody that wants to come forward to speak about specifically that issue.
Okay, so I will, is that this evening?
That's like in 5 minutes.
Okay, okay, sorry about that.
So basically, no, that's okay. It wasn't clear to me that that's what it was for, but as you started to say what it was, we'll have you come back in like just a second. Just watch. It may end up that you turn around and come right back up. Was there anybody else that wished to address council on any community-related matter that's not the subject of a public hearing? I don't see anybody else coming forward. Okay, so we will close our delegations and we will move on to public hearings. We'll start with item 6.1, which is in fact bylaw C 1260-92. I call this public hearing to order, and I would look to administration for a brief introduction.
Thank you, Mayor Given. The proposed bylaw is an amendment to the Land Use District DC 13. The subject property is in the eastern side of the city off of 92 Street near the intersection of Mount View and Hillside neighborhoods, and is somewhat within the Crystal Heights neighborhood. Here's a current street view of the site as it is today. It is a storage facility for recreational vehicles. It has a communications tower and a warehouse on the site. It is on a high visibility corridor, excuse me, let me correct that. It's not on a high visibility overlay corridor. What I meant to say is that it is on a high traffic street and is a very visible location. The site is located in an area that is predominantly low density residential with little other uses in the vicinity. Related to the site, previous council direction was in 2015 when council voted to approve the DC 13 district, which included the warehouse and RV storage uses, as well as a number of site controls. The proposed use in this application is to have a commercial storage facility that utilizes shipping containers as units. The RV storage use would be discontinued. The warehouse use would continue. It stores products for a retail business off-site. The rental office for the commercial storage facility would be off-site as well. The DC district would include a site plan, which I've provided here. This indicates the layout of specifically where the shipping containers would go, the areas required for parking, areas that are required to be paved and landscaped, as well as setback separation and screening. Here we have an artist rendering from the applicant of how the site would look. The site design has changed somewhat since this was created, but it gives an idea of the overall concept of layout and what the facility would look like with screening and landscaping. Here are other renderings, so you can see there's significantly more screening and landscaping than the site currently has. Similarly, this is just another view of the same rendering. Here's an example from another city of a similar facility and what that would look like, except in this example, one of the containers is stacked and that would not be permitted in this district, but this shows the type of facility that this would be. As part of the application process, the applicant was required to undergo some neighborhood engagement. He opted to use sending letters to adjacent property owners and posting signs on the property. And administration undertook the standard notification process from the land use bylaw, which includes ads in the newspaper and signs on the property, as well as letters to the adjacent property owners. We took the additional step of emailing adjacent neighborhood associations, including Hillside and Mount View. Though administration didn't directly receive any responses, the applicant did receive feedback and questions from residents and the Hillside Neighborhood Association, which are attached to the report. The general nature of the concerns were the impact on traffic, the general appearance of what would be developed, and the industrial nature of the site and whether or not that's appropriate for the area. Administration had similar concerns to the residents who commented. One primary issue would be that shipping containers being used for commercial storage would not generally be supported anywhere else in the city. Commercial storage facilities are not typically permitted adjacent to residential uses. They are only permitted in our industrial districts and our commercial arterial district, which is somewhat industrial in nature. And there were similar concerns about the potential for noise, industrial appearance in the residential area, and the type of traffic that would be coming to the area. However, administration is recommending support for this application for a number of reasons. Firstly, the site would not be able to have permanent structures erected because of the utility lines on the site. A permanent foundation cannot be placed. That is why the use of shipping containers is being considered for this application. The existing use is similar in nature. However, the shift from RV storage to commercial storage, in administration's opinion, would be less disruptive to adjacent property owners, as the shipping containers would be fixed, and there would be potential improvements to safety, as there were a number of break-ins that the owner was concerned with the current use. Further, the industrial nature of the site predates the residential uses around it. The site was originally developed for Alberta government telephones prior to the residential development, so it isn't a surprise to property owners who purchase their home in that area. It will be a continuation of a similar use. And the main factor for the recommendation in favor is that it would be a significant improvement to the appearance of the site, in that the shipping containers would be fixed and of a standard color to closely resemble a permanent building rather than RVs being moved around on a regular basis, as well as the significant improvements to screening, paving, and landscaping. It was a difficult recommendation to make. In consideration of this recommendation, we looked at Council's result definition under the economy goals of its strategic objectives to encourage a range of development and infill opportunities, balancing standards and opportunities for economic growth. And based on this analysis, administration recommends that the bylaw be given all 3 readings.
Okay, thanks very much. Are there any questions for administration at this time from Council? Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I know reading our agenda package, one of the concerns with some area residents in this facility was potential for increase in calls to the police and the undesirable behaviors that cause that. Mayor, do we have any stats on what current callouts on this site is right now and how that compares to similar storage sites across the city? I'm especially interested in storage at Storage Pro on the north end because that's right next to a residential zone too.
Thank you, through the mayor. So we did receive email questions from Councillor Bressley regarding this topic, and we were able to get this information in time for this evening. So the facility at the site now has received approximately 10 calls within the past 5 years. About 4 of those were false alarms, and most of the remainder were theft, break and enter into the storage, the RVs on the site, which is what the applicant had expressed concern about. The stats for another commercial storage facility that we received were about 8 calls over the past 5 years. Most of them were false alarms, so suspicious people or the majority of the calls that were actually legitimate complaints were domestic disputes of clients fighting over the goods in the units.
Thanks very much. Councillor O'Toole.
Yes, I was just wondering, thank you very much, Mayor Given. I was wondering if there's hours of operation, if there was any opportunity to set the hours of operation, so nothing before 8 and nothing late at night.
Mr. DeRoche.
Thank you, through the mayor. Yes, there is an opportunity to restrict the hours of operation. That would be done through the development permit, which I've discussed with Stuart Wright, and he is inclined to do so. That item would be part of negotiations with the applicant, but he has expressed an interest in doing that as well.
Just a couple more. Have any discussions with crime prevention in Grande Prairie, our department, to see if we can possibly reduce the crime in that area and how it could be done?
Mr. DeRoche.
Yes, through the mayor. So we have not had direct discussions with crime prevention about doing an analysis of that site, although that is a possibility.
Okay. And just one more. Showed in the rendition that the trailers, the sea cans were all painted white. We would have an opportunity to suggest colors that would blend in more to the community.
Mr. DeRoche.
Through the mayor, the rendering is just the default color for that software. I don't think the intent was for that to be the final color. If council wishes to provide input on the color, I'm sure the applicant would consider that, but I can't speak for him.
But they were going to be painted according to the application, correct?
Through the mayor, so the district bylaw requires them to all be uniform in color, but it does not specify what color.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Bress, you had something further?
Thank you. Thank you. Just once again, reading our packet, I saw there was a concern about traffic in the neighborhood with this. Do we have any idea how this might impact traffic, or is that something we've looked at all?
Mr. DeRoche. Mr. DeRoche, you'll just have to get your microphone there. Went off.
Sorry. Through the mayor, we don't have specific figures on the number of traffic generation, although engineering has the capability to provide those numbers. We didn't get them. One consideration is that the traffic for RV storage is usually seasonal, so it's only several months of the year when that is accessed, so that would be the major difference.
Okay. And Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I guess the question similar to Councillor Bressy's is just on this. It's a 4-lane road currently, so that road's designed to a certain amount of car flow a day. Do we know what our current traffic would be on that road, and just to kind of see how close we could be to a maximum capacity on that road? Would we know kind of the traffic, I guess, on the corner of 108th and 92nd?
Mr. DeRoche.
To the mayor, sorry, I don't actually have that information for you. Our engineering department would be able to get that, though.
Okay. And one other question, just when the slide was up, it kind of showed the fence line and then some trees and then the unit starting. So just looking at the first picture, so does that mean that the entire fence is going to be taken down, or the fence would stay screened and then there would be landscaping putting in between the fence now and where the trailers currently are? Like, it looks like there's more separation than what's currently there on one of your slides.
Sure. Through Mr. Mayor, so the existing fence line would be the same. It would just be screened. However, the level of landscaping within the site would be changed because we required them to do the design as if with setbacks, as if it was a commercial storage facility in the CA district. And considering that it's adjacent to residential uses, it's a larger setback from the side property lines.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. DeRoche. Councillor Clayton.
Mayor Given, in the development permit, is there an opportunity, or tell me how it would look once the existing facility is there, and if the maintenance of the facility isn't adequate, would this facility in regards to the buildings and the infrastructure fall under the unsightly premises? How would, if over time the sea cans aren't repainted, they start to look rusty, it appears to be quite run down just due to regular use and weather. What are the parameters for the city to step in?
Thank you. To the Mayor, there are several avenues for this. It depends generally on how long the development has been there. With a development permit, there's typically a 2-year maintenance period, and that's just basic maintenance. Over time, there is still a possibility to go through development enforcement if it becomes unsightly. Generally, after a longer period of time, would be more of an unsightly premises rather than a development enforcement.
Councillor O'Toole.
Yes, thank you very much again, Mayor Given. Just a question on a typical day at this facility, if it was to get operational. Approximately how many visits and how many customers, or is it going to be one unit or one customer that's going to be using the whole site, or is it going to be leased out to the C-cans? Will they be leased out to other opportunities?
Mr. DeRoche.
I'm not sure if you can answer that, but it's a question.
To the Mayor, each unit will be individually rented. So it wouldn't be an individual client renting all of the units. I can't give you specific numbers on how many visitors there would be, though.
Okay. No, I was more thinking that if it was one individual, they would be coming in every hour on the hour or something like that. Or the other concern that I may have is, what would the largest vehicle that would be using that facility, what size would it be? Would it be like a 3-ton truck, or would it be a highway truck? A B-train or something like that?
Mr. DeRoche.
To the Mayor, I can't say for sure. My understanding is that generally it would just be your standard personal vehicle, so cars, pickup trucks, although there might be larger clients who want to store equipment in that type of facility.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. Just a couple of questions, Mr. DeRoche. Thanks for your presentation. I'm trying to visualize the access to the site. It's kind of in line with Councillor O'Toole's question with the size of vehicles actually entering and potentially slowing down traffic on that road, even though they'd be signaling. Like, is there enough room for them to pull in? Like, let's say they had like a U-Haul, for instance, like a large-scale U-Haul. Could they pull in and like park there and be off the road, or would they have to have their signal or hazards on the road while they're turning into the site to go drop off the stuff at the storage units?
Mr. DeRoche, is that a question for you? I see you've been joined by a teammate. Mr. Manuel?
Certainly. So I can answer that question as it really relates to our truck routes. So presently there is commercial traffic that is attending that location. The warehouse is used for furniture storage, therefore delivery vehicles are attending the site to remove furniture or drop off furniture there. The 92nd Street corridor is an existing truck route authorized in the city of Grande Prairie. There's a fair volume of commercial truck traffic that exists down there, and that road is designed specifically to accommodate that sort of traffic.
I appreciate that answer. And I do have one more question.
Councillor, go ahead.
Probably more for Mr. DeRoche. Just in regards to the neighborhood beautification, there's nothing uglier, in my opinion, than a cell phone tower sticking up right in your backyard. But what is the density of the trees that are going to be lined up around this barbed wire fence? and screen fence. Are we going to stick to typical city standards, or are we increasing the standards, or like how well in, like, let's say 5 years will that barbed wire be screened from the growth of trees?
Mr. Drosh?
I can give you, sorry, through the mayor, I can give you a specific number of trees if you'd like. It is a typical city standard. We didn't go beyond our regular requirements for the commercial arterial district. The trees are within the property, so on the interior side of the fence, on the outside it's city boulevard, so it's more difficult for the applicant to do landscaping there.
Okay, so in that regards, how tall do we expect those trees to grow? Would they grow taller than the 9-foot 6-inch secans, or like would they have the ability to screen it, or would it just be a minor screen?
Mr. Drosh?
Through the mayor, it would be a mix based on the specific types of trees planted. Some of them likely would, but I can't say for sure.
Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Okay, I don't see anybody else in the queue until just then. Councillor Minhas.
Thank you, Mayor. Well given. Mr. Gross, could you describe the fence? You're going to leave the steel fence, wire fence, or is there a plan to change the fence to the wooden fence around that area when you have storage room?
Mr. Drosh?
Thank you. To the mayor, the district is written that they're required to provide screen fencing. My assumption is that they'll utilize the existing fencing and merely put screening material in it. The district does not include specifications on the material of fence.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Drosh. Okay, I'll try it again. I don't see anybody else in the queue this time. And there will be another opportunity, Council, if you have any additional questions that arise for administration. So at this time, I'll open the presentation submission portion of the public hearing. This is the opportunity where anybody that wished to speak in regards to this application could come forward. Ms. Sherritt, if you'd like to come forward. Welcome. And we won't cut you off this time.
So I am the chair of the Hillside Neighborhood Association. We were asked, we were given direction from city planners and whatnot on this. I'm also, my property is almost butting up against this lot as well. So our concerns are the increased traffic. This road was just recently developed, and you're changing it from seasonal access right now to full-time access for a lot more people, it would seem, would be accessing the location. And it's basically unsightly as well. Like a secant is a large steel structure that rusts and is corrugated, and it's meant for shipping. Regardless of the use or the landscaping, they are inappropriate for this area that we're trying to beautify, basically. That was another issue. Another issue is crime. I'm not really sure exactly how easily these items are broken into, but I'm sure a lot of people would try, at least. I know there is crime currently there because of the travel trailers and whatnot, but I have some concerns that there'll be more crime with secans and increased traffic and things getting stored on that location. And basically, secans block the view of things, so it's easy to maybe entice crime a little bit more, unless they know, there's nothing in there saying that it's going to be surveillanced or anything like that. I just think that we think that it's highly inappropriate for the area. I know that it's listed under commercial, but when you see a secant and a lot of them, you think industrial. Like, I feel like this should be placed in an industrial park, not in a residential area. So we do understand that it is currently zoned as direct control, and because of the towers which resided there before the residential area existed, but it is necessary for communication. I don't think that that gives more entice to make it look worse just because there is a tower there. These containers are undisputably industrial. They have no commercial use. They are for ocean and trucking purposes, for shipping, and are constructed as strong as possible while maintaining a relatively light weight through corrugation. These containers are totally inappropriate for anything other than industrial areas and are not commercial, are not ideal for commercial or private storage. Another one of our concerns is if the city allows these sea cants to be used in this area for commercial buildings, this sets a precedence that is establishing an, if the city allows this to be used as commercial buildings, it sets a precedence that is established as ill-advised. What is there to prevent future businesses and people opening up businesses and use these structures for buildings in the future? What would prevent these buildings from being placed in parking lots throughout the city as commercial ventures? Why would future businesses build actual buildings once these sea cants are at least it's a nice ring. So yeah, basically what I'm saying is if we're allowing these as buildings as commercial use, we would like to eliminate that from happening in the future in other locations as well. What is in place after this to set up a mall in the parking lot? These are cheap to build. They're about $4,000 each, and we don't want to. This is like could be a chain effect. Like you're letting these be used as buildings now for this location. There's going to be other places, people that are going to be like, well, you let this happen over here. Why can't we now let that happen over here? And it could create a downward stream that's inappropriate, I believe. I also think that it could, property values could decrease in the area as well. Nobody wants to look out their back window and see a tower, but the tower's there. Now we're going to see a tower and a storage facility and sea cans. Just not very appealing. And it could deter people from buying properties in that area. As the chair of the Hillside Neighborhood Association, I speak on behalf of the community, and we would like to take a stand against the proposed amendment that would allow for a commercial storage facility that uses shipping containers as units. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thanks, Ms. Charette. Now, just hold on a second, just in case there are any questions for the delegation. Any questions for the delegation? Councillor Thiessen.
Thanks for coming in today, Crystal. Appreciate it, and for taking a stand for your neighborhood. Takes a lot of courage. I kind of need your eyes on the street. I was going to drive by this location earlier today, which is why I was asking questions about trees earlier, because from my memory, it seems really narrow between the curb and the actual fence line. Living in the neighborhood, is it narrow? Do you think that they could plant trees in front of the fence and do some screening there at all?
I thought the trees were going to be planted on the other side.
The other side, yeah.
Is my knowledge, because they can't really plant on city property, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's on the other side of the fence, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask Mr. DeRoche to plop it up again just so I could see it one more time.
So I think the trees that they're proposing are over this fence.
Okay. Now, in regards to the RV park that is currently there, it looks pretty unsightly by the picture that was presented. At nighttime, they light it up, right? Is there a big...
There is a few lights, I believe, yes, but not like it wouldn't deter people from stealing, obviously, if there's...
Okay, now I'm asking this only because I'm going to probably ask Mr. DeRoche another question that came into my head just in regards to lighting, but living in the neighborhood, is the light bothersome at night? Like, does it creep into your window and does it annoy you? Like, some people get annoyed over little things, train whistles and other stuff. Those are little bigger things, but is it an abrasive light at all, or?
I think you can notice it for sure.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. That's...
No problem.
Okay, just hold on, Ms. Sherritt. Councillor Bressie is also in the queue.
Great. Thank you for coming here and speaking to us and give us context. I really appreciate that. Two questions for you. Just one is, what's your personal and what's the community's feel on just the current use of it and living across from the RV parking as it is now? And just tell me what that's like.
Well, I guess nobody really likes to look out their window and see RVs, and they're not really parked uniformly, I guess. I guess there is a way of making it look a little bit better, but I just don't think that sea cans are going to look any better, and they rust, and you know, it's going to be all in the exterior of the property. It's industrial looking. People park RVs in their yards, right? So people are a little less maybe adverse to it because you can park one in your backyard and nobody really would say anything about it. But then you add a bunch of sea cans in there and you just looks very industrial.
Awesome. Thank you. And then my second question for you was just, could you give me a bit of insight into how the conversation with your community association went in terms of, did you just discuss this as a board? Was it discussed at a general meeting? Is this a unanimous opinion amongst everybody who participated in the conversation, or were there people who, was everybody opposed to it? Were there people that are for it? Could you just give me a bit of insight on how your community association conversation went?
We had a couple meetings regarding this, and actually Reed and Waleed were at one of our meetings. We had invited them to speak to the association. One of our meetings that we held is public. None of the public really came, but everybody on the association was opposed of the idea of having the sea can storage unit there. And I don't think there's for sure nobody for it. And it was just the association, most members of the association were there. And like I said, the city planners were there to better explain to us. And I think he had a slide up there on that as well. So we wanted to make sure that we had our details in place before we made a decision on it. And we came up with a decision, and we kind of went through it, had a meeting on it last week, and we kind of typed up something that kind of generalized what everybody thought of it. So it's not really all of my thoughts. It's the association together amalgamated and made this decision.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you to the association for giving us that feedback. It's really important. So thank you.
And we also have Councillor O'Toole in the queue. Councillor O'Toole.
Well, I have a question, or a couple. Obviously, you're not too happy about this proposal. What's the consensus with the trailers there now? Would you rather have them gone as well?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be awesome.
I figured that would be your answer. So, but would there be anything that you could sort of, not saying this is going to go through or not, but if there was a compromise, would you have an idea to maybe compromise to do something to the location to make it happen on behalf of the owner? Like, would you like to see a facade, or or something, a higher fence or something like that? Because this is the opportunity to bring that information up.
If we were discussing, I just feel like as a part of the discussion, it wasn't only, we were kind of looking down the road and thinking, you know, we're going to let this happen now. What else is going to happen? And then I guess if you looked at it in terms of this one facility, this is the only facility that's going to happen. This is the only time that the city is ever going to let a secant commercial building happen. Then yeah, maybe we could say we can put a higher fence so that you cannot see inside whatsoever, and we can cover them up. And yeah, maybe that would solve that problem, but it doesn't really solve the problem of we're letting secants be used as a commercial building. They're $4,000 a piece. What if I want to set up a business somewheres and want to use a secant storage building and maybe make a strip mall out of it and have vendors come and rent vendors, you know? And so when does it, like, this is the first one that I know of in the city, and I'm just thinking that later on down the road that people are going to bring up this, and I guess I'm just kind of concerned about that it might be something that continues on. And
Well, it's not the first time this has been brought to council about having a CCAN building, so.
and what happened in the future, or the past events?
There was an idea, and it just left it as an idea.
Okay.
We didn't have any decision-making on that at that time. It was proposals.
Okay.
That was part of an RFP process. So.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, thank you very much for.
Thank you.
Ms. Sherritt, I had one question for you. There's nobody else, thank you, so I might as well take the opportunity. If the use was proposed to be a storage facility like this, but it was intended to be built structures like the other storage facilities that we see around town on Resources Road and 116th Street on the bypass near Mr. Mike's, would your opinion change? Is it the use that you're concerned about, or is it the type of building?
I think that there would be, if it was a permanent structure, I think there would be less concerns about it for sure. But as we are aware, you can't put a permanent structure on this lot. And I think that there would be less concerns about it because a lot of the protests against it are mainly to do with what the storage facility is going to look like and what the structure is being built by. You're building it with secants, and
so it's really around the concerns, just so that I'm clear, are really around the concern around aesthetics and what it's going to look like, and the concept of using secans for a facility.
Yes, I feel like it's an industrial use. Like a secant is, you go through an industrial park, you see secants all the time. It's not a big deal, but if you go and in a residential area, you don't expect to see secants. And they're saying it's commercial use, but it's a commercial use, but an industrial look, I guess.
No, fair enough. I just wanted to clarify that it wasn't specifically the idea of having this as being a storage facility that was the primary concern.
That's right.
And that doesn't sound like that's the case. Okay, thanks very much. I don't see anybody else like you. I don't have any more questions, so thanks, Ms. Sherritt, for being here this evening. Thank you. Was there anybody else that wished to come forward with respect to this land use bylaw amendment? Was there anybody else that wished to come forward in favor or opposed to this land use bylaw amendment? This will be the last time that I ask, and if there's anybody else that wished to come forward, this would be the time, or you will lose that opportunity. I don't see anybody else coming forward, and so I will look to council to see if there are any further questions for administration before I close the public hearing. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. Sorry for the line of questioning there, Crystal. It seems a little weird, but my brain was motoring. Mr. DeRoche, when this development came forward, was there any discussion about, because there's a lot of land there, about pushing the fence back maybe about 6 feet and then putting the trees on the other side? The reason why, when I think of a fence, screening or no screening, it's still chain link, and there's still barbed wire on top. It doesn't create for a welcoming environment for people that are driving by. It actually kind of says, hit me up here or try to climb over. If you want to try to steal something in here, there's something in here obviously of worth value besides the cell phone tower. But was there any discussion about moving that fence line back and utilizing the land to properly screen the area for the residents?
Mr. Drosh?
Mr. Mayor, no, there were various discussions about the specific site layout, but not specifically about moving the fence line to accommodate landscaping on the other side.
Oh, could that be done at a request? No, I'm just asking, like for this or any potential future developments that we could ask the landowner to consider pushing that fence back to create a better screen using natural greenery.
Through the mayor, it is possible. However, it would not be feasible to do an as amended for this application at this moment for this public hearing. So it would either require an additional amendment to the district or for a whole new public hearing if that's the reason for not supporting.
Okay. Now, my other question too is in regards to lighting. Typically around storage facility sites, they have extensive lighting. That's to ensure that people's valuables are protected and that cameras can see stuff. Currently, there is some lighting in the neighborhood according to our delegation. But with the creation of this type of facility, would there be enhanced lighting for security measures in that area that may have an impact on the residents?
Through the mayor, my understanding is that the lighting would be comparable to what's on the site now. The land use bylaw does have specific requirements for lighting, especially adjacent to residential uses, to minimize any disruption.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Any other questions for administration before I close the public hearing? Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Givens. Something I'm curious about is I have a bit of brushing up to do on my land use bylaw, so maybe there's not a significant difference here, but reference is made a couple times to where the recommendation is to expect standards from a commercial arterial district. Is there a significant difference between what would be required in something like a commercial local district or something that's more residential in nature in terms of trees and screening and all that? And was there any discussion about fitting requirements more to different land use districts other than commercial arterial, just in nature of it being surrounded by residential?
Mr. Drosh?
Through the mayor, so the commercial arterial district has more stringent standards for when it's adjacent to residential. The choice for commercial arterial is because it's the only commercial district that allows for commercial storage. The other districts that do allow it are industrial. And so this was the one with the most stringent standards.
Thanks, Councillor Bressie. I don't see anybody else in the queue, Council, so I will close the public hearing and we'll move on to business arising. I would look for a motion of first reading, please. Thank you, Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you. Pardon me while I just get my notes to the right place. All right, I'm in the right place now. Sorry. I would move that Council give first reading to bylaw C-1260-92, being an amendment to the land use bylaw.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Blackburn. We'll have no discussion or debate on first reading, just to get it onto the paper for us to vote. I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you. I would move that Council give second reading to bylaw C-1260-92.
Thanks very much, Councillor Blackburn. Open for discussion and debate on second reading. Council, is there any discussion or debate on second reading? I see Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I'd actually like to propose an amendment to this, and please, if I'm out of line, by all means tell me. The amendment would simply be to have the trees on the outside of the chain link fence and barbed wire, and the chain link and chain link fence and barbed wire to be on the inside. The reason why I say this is it's a matter of city beautification. I'm proud of my community, and I think this would be a small modification to the plan as it is. It was interesting. It's just a small modification to the plan as it is, but I feel like if we were to put the trees on the outside, then our residents, as they drive up 92nd Street, they wouldn't be faced with a barbed wire chain link fence going along there. Instead, their first impression would be trees and shrubs rather than on the inside, which is contained inside the unit. Judging by the picture that I see here is about a 6.1 meter setback. Hi, Eunice.
We're done.
This is about a 6.1 meter setback, and I think this would be just a small modification that not only would improve the aesthetics of the site, but also help with the residents as far as feeling like there's some care and consideration put into the planning of this. So.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Just for anybody watching, we have Councillor Friesen, who is on hold waiting for us to get to the discussion on the cannabis bylaw, and so she may have us off of mute on her end, and so, but that's just Councillor Friesen just waiting to call in for a later item. So, Councillor Thiessen, I guess a question for administration before I decide whether we can do that amendment. Mr. Droche, in the proposed land use bylaw that's in front of us today, or land use bylaw amendment, does it get to the level of detail that Councillor Thiessen is discussing, or is that something that would be in the development permit stage?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, because we were being so stringent with this district, it includes a very specific site plan, so the one that's included in your report, and so the location of the fence and the landscaping are in that site plan. Procedurally, I've never encountered this where there would be a request for a change at this point. It would require a consultation with the applicant to decide whether they want to ask for a vote as is and wait the 6 months and reapply or not.
Mr. City Manager?
I'm sorry to wade in on the debate, Mayor Given, but typically in the design of secure facilities, it would be advisable to put trees on the inside of a fence so that people aren't tempted to climb the trees in order to get over the fence. I think the design that was proposed was probably a standard for secure facilities such as this one.
Thanks for that perspective, Mr. City Manager. And I would be very cautious, Councillor Thiessen, your motion speaks to sort of the general intent of locating the trees outside the fence. I'm not certain whether council has enough information to know whether that's technically feasible or if that would run contrary to any other sort of site constraints that we don't have that level of detail. So recognizing that there is in the proposed land use bylaw a site plan, your suggestion is that council amend the site plan that's in front of us. I'm not sure how we can do that effectively. Like, are we moving the fence 3 feet? Are we moving the fence 6 feet? And we don't have that level of detail, but you're talking about amending a site plan. So I appreciate that the intent is clear, but it's pretty specific when they start to have measurements on a site plan that's being proposed.
I totally understand, and I know that it was sort of an obscure ask, but as we are councillors of our city and the creation of our city, I would just hope that we are mindful of this. I take into account the safety precautions and the measures. There's a lot of distance between that 6 meters, and I don't see it as a hard ask of the developer. But for me, who takes great pride in our community and the trees that our last council and our current council have planted far more than the previous ones, I would hope that we get that same sort of intake and buy-in. And if it can be justified to be on the inside and there's no way of changing it, I can understand that. But I would, as somebody who travels up 92nd quite frequently, I would rather see trees to my right than, barbed wire and chain link fence and sea cans, which are also going to creep up over the top there until those trees reach maturity. But as this plan stands right now, with the trees on the inside and without definitive justification for that, I don't know if I can support this plan.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. And so, Councillor Thiessen, are you not making an amendment then?
Well, if the amendment doesn't seem pliable to be voted on tonight, I'm okay with it not, which is why I stated earlier, if I'm out of line and need to be corrected, by all means, please do. It's just one man reaching out, trying to create beauty in his community where there's the potential for it not to be as beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor O'Toole on the main motion. So we have no amendment. Councillor O'Toole?
I agree with Councillor Thiessen that we should maybe do some enhancement, but also it was recommended or it was mentioned in the proposal that there's underground wires and other structures underneath there. That's why the possibility of building something solid and for the foundation can't be done. But I could think of maybe Virginia creepers on the fence, and it doesn't change the fence line, and they look pretty when it's all in operation. But that's not for me to decide. It's not for council to decide. That's for the developer. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. I'll move next to Councillor Clayton.
I would like to speak in support of the motion. I feel that I appreciate. Sorry, are you stopping me?
No.
Okay. I appreciate the Hillside Neighborhood Association coming out tonight and providing the information. However, I don't feel this proposal is industrial in nature. I do believe over time this will look better than is currently there. I think that buildings and commercial sites come in all shapes and sizes with varying materials and design standards, and corrugated metal, although it may not be what you traditionally see out your back door. I think that there's many circumstances that we've seen as a council over time and where corrugated and C-cans are built into what's actually a great piece of looking commercial building, architect. And I think that your concerns such as rusting and the aesthetics of the building can be addressed through enforcement services. And overall, I think this will be a better proposal than you currently, what you see out your back window right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'm not sure if we should be going forward with all three readings tonight, but I'm definitely going to be voting in favor of second reading. I've got questions about is there things that can be done to include to make the aesthetics better of the site, but I know from the time I moved to Grande Prairie 7 or 8 years ago, this was a site that surprised me just by how ugly it was, feeling right in the middle of town. And it's a site that every time I drive past it, I'm bothered by just looking at it. I don't think it's great for community pride. I don't think it's great for what is a big route through town, having to look at this when it's surrounded by houses. Speaking to C-cans, I was just in Calgary in the East Village, which is one of the most heavily invested in areas of any city in Western Canada right now, and is a very trendy, very hip, very good-looking part. And one of the things I went to was a market that was made in some very good-looking C-cans. When I was in Halifax recently, I used a public washroom that was in a C-can, and again, it looked like it matched the place. And I've been in C-can type constructions many other places too. I think that these can really make sense in certain circumstances. It's something that I don't want to see every building become, but when it's appropriate, it can create more flexibility. It's environmentally responsible in terms of it's recycling something that might not get recycled, might just rot somewhere else. And there's times where it's got utilities, such as here, where you can't build other buildings. I also wonder, is this utility tower always going to be needed there? I don't know. Maybe it won't be in 20, 30, 40 years as technology changes. Well, if there's C-cans here, we've got a chance of seeing this area redeveloped. I have a feeling that we don't have much chance of seeing this redeveloped if there's permanent structures that are invested in there. So I think that while I respect the concerns of seeing C-cans, and while I don't want to see them in every commercial parking lot, the great thing about this being direct control is we're not giving anybody else the ability to use C-cans anywhere else in the city right now. This is something that council gets to say, this is a special circumstance because it's direct control and there's special constraints around this property, so we're going to allow it here. So that concern so the C-can concern doesn't really jive with me. That being said, I do have some hesitations about traffic use and about the general look of the building, and I am still thinking through that stuff. But I tend to vote in favor of second reading.
Thanks, Councillor Bressie. I see Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I'm actually going to vote in favor of second reading, but I probably won't vote to have third reading here today. I would really like to talk with the owner and see if there is anything that can be done with this site plan aesthetic-wise. I know you can't plant anything permanently in there supposedly, but in their letter they say trees and shrubs. Our administration said trees and shrubs will be planted, so something's getting planted in there regardless of whatever's under the ground. So I do believe this could be a small ask. And as far as the aesthetics, I think under direct control, this is an opportunity that our council, in discussion with the landowner, can maybe find something that works for everybody here, Seacants and all included. And my goal in this is just to really improve the aesthetics of that laneway and of the neighborhood that wants to see an improvement there and is worried that otherwise they're going to get a bit of the same old, just a different structure rather than RVs. They're going to see rusted corrugated secant. I have faith that the landowner isn't going to allow that to go in disrepair, and I have faith in our administration that they'll enforce it over the years. But anything that we can do to improve the sight lines of our city is going to make our community a lot more welcoming and inclusive for future generations to enjoy. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. I don't see anybody else in the queue on second reading. So I will call for the vote for second reading. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that council have third reading of bylaw C 1260-92 at this meeting.
Thanks, Councillor Blackburn. This is a motion to have third and final reading of this bylaw here tonight. If this motion does pass unanimously, we can move on to having third and final reading. If it does not pass unanimously, then the third and final reading would come back at a subsequent council meeting. Is there any discussion or debate as to the merits of having third and final reading? Councillor Bressy.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'm open to persuasion, so I'd love to hear if people have different thoughts, but right now I'm inclined to vote no to having third reading. I'm wondering if we should slow it down a little bit. Specifically, what I'd love to know is, are there options in terms of making this fence look more appealing, whether it's shrubbery in front of it that won't be climbable or whether it is whatever. Love to know that. Also, we heard from administration that there's some data about traffic that seems to be available to us, but we don't have right now, and I'd love to get a better understanding of what impacts traffic are going to be on this area. I'm also very conscious that this is an area of our city. Hillside is coming to talk to us, and Hillside had some pretty major changes in their area within the last year. And conscious of that, I want to give them lots of time to be able to, if they feel the need, to be able to call us, email us, and come back and have more say in the light of the conversation we just had. Because I'm very conscious of the changes that have been made in this neighborhood in the last year, and I want to make sure that we're doing a very fulsome process with them. So I think I'm going to be voting no to having third reading tonight.
Thanks, Councillor Bressy. And again, as to the merits of having third and final reading here tonight, Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'd like to speak in favor of having third reading tonight. I appreciate the concerns that residents have and that some of my fellow councillors have in terms of making sure that the discussion has been full. I really don't believe we're going to see much in the way of change in the decision that we will make regarding this. I think in the long run we are going to pass it. I know that Mr. Manuel spoke to the fact that 92nd Street is already the kind of route that will support the type of traffic that would go to this site. I know that we have heard from Councillor Clayton, and I agree with her that the aesthetics of the place is going to be much improved over what it is now. The idea of uniform size and color secans as opposed to the random parking of RVs and so on will make an improvement. The fact that the fence will be covered makes a difference, and I just really think that holding on to this discussion for any greater length of time is not going to provide any greater benefit. So I'm urging that we have third reading tonight and allow the applicant to get on with making the improvements that he wants to make.
Thanks, Councillor Blackburn. I see Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. echoing Councillor Blackburn's comments, I encourage Council to allow for third reading tonight. I can appreciate your concerns with some of the aesthetics of this, but as it's mentioned in the document, the amendment to the bylaw, there's an opportunity for Development Authority's discretion in order to meet this bylaw, and development may occur in phases. I think administration has heard the concerns in regards to the aesthetics, and I'm comforted in the opportunity for Development Authority to have influence on this development, and therefore I think the bylaw isn't really the concern tonight, which is what we're voting on, and I'm confident that Development Authority will have input in regards to landscaping and concerns with the aesthetics of the fence. So I encourage Council to allow for third reading tonight.
Thanks, Councillor Clayton. I see Councillor O'Toole. I'll just jump in the queue to say that I also support having third and final reading tonight. We heard from the delegation that the use itself wasn't the primary concern. It was aesthetics and perceptions around safety and a number of other concerns. And as a practical matter, I think our typical approach, we have closed the public hearing, which doesn't make it easy to introduce additional information after we've closed the public hearing. Had we recessed the public hearing, asked management to work with the applicant and bring back other ideas or other options, and then continue the public hearing, that would be a lot easier. I'm with Councillor Clayton that the concerns of the residents and the concerns of council are pretty clear at this point. I would imagine that our management team would discuss those with the applicant at the development permit stage. And so for me tonight, I'm seeing this as third reading of the use of, of the storage facility more than the aesthetics, which I think can be addressed at a development permit stage as they are on a number of other developments in the city. So that's why I would be in support of third and final reading this evening. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much for making that information available to the public that are here today and on the screen. I also do support this project, and I feel that it will be a huge beautification program compared to what's presently there. I do myself drive by there regularly.
Sorry, Councillor O'Toole, just to be clear, we're discussing and debating right now whether or not to have third and final reading rather than the merits of the project as a whole.
Yep, I support it.
Councillor Clayton, you had a question?
I have a question for administration. It's pertinent to
process question, sure.
Right. Thanks. To administration, can you tell me if third reading doesn't happen tonight, the delay in process that is potential on this bylaw and what it looks like in regards to going forward with this development? How much longer are we talking if in the delay of actually having third reading tonight?
Mr. Drosh?
Through the Mayor, third reading would be at the next regularly scheduled council meeting. So typically that's a 2-week delay. How that impacts the applicant's actual timelines for the project, I can't speak to.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So to the merits of having third and final reading this evening, Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I thank my council members for helping educate the public and myself, but I still feel like, for me at least, slowing this down and potentially getting a little more information on what can be done on this site. My biggest question is in regards to the landowner. Well, the old site as an RV storage unit with falling apart chain link fence, obviously nothing was done, and it was as is and approved, and we had no recourse, or we didn't take our recourses to get them to redevelop or screen that or plant trees or shrubs or bushes. I want to ensure that we get the best development possible. I do think this is going to be an improvement on the land area as it is right now, but for my own I guess benefit, maybe for the benefit of the community as well, I'd like to hear what potential options are available and what kind of securities that we actually have at that development permit stage, whether or not the landowner would be willing to plant those trees, those shrubs, those bushes in one area or another, or to ensure that it's actually happening. So for me, really stopping the train right now, slowing down, giving some pause for thought. I want to ensure that we get the best possible product, not just for the landowner, but also for the community and for the neighborhood association as well that has to live with it. So I'm okay with not having third reading tonight. Thank you.
I'm seeing a few council members coming back in for a second round on the merits of having third and final reading, and that's sort of a yes or no. I will go to Councillor Blackburn to close on the motion to have third and final reading. Councillor Blackburn?
Thank you, Mayor Given. I appreciate the concerns that Councillor Thiessen and Councillor Bressie have. I really do think that those can be addressed even after passing this bylaw, and I really see no benefit in delaying third reading when, even if we do learn more between now and 2 weeks from now, it would likely have more effect on what happens to the development than what would happen to the bylaw. So again, I would urge that we have third reading tonight and get on with business.
Thanks very much, Councillor Blackburn. So that will be the motion to close, or sorry, that'll be the close to the motion to have third and final reading. Again, for everybody keeping score out there, in order for this to proceed to third and final reading this evening, this motion must pass unanimously. If it doesn't pass unanimously, then it would come back to council for consideration of that third and final reading at a subsequent council meeting. We'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion does not carry unanimously, and so third reading of the bylaw amendment will come back at our next council meeting, which I believe is September 24th, and that would be an opportunity for council to vote on third and final reading, which would pass on a simple, could be passed on a simple majority at that time. It doesn't have to be unanimous. That handles all of our business, I believe, related to C-1260-92. We have no unfinished business this evening, and we did have our additional agenda item 8.1 with respect to interim CAO and CAO recruitment. Council circulated ahead of the meeting was a report with a recommendation that Council appoint Horacio Galante as interim CAO effective September 29th, and that Council engage Alto Partners to conduct a market recruitment process to fill the CAO position on a permanent basis. This is obviously a result of our CAO announcing that he will be moving on from the City of Grande Prairie, Mr. Nicolay, and so the recommended effective date is after Mr. Nicolay's departure, and so it would ensure that the city has a continuity in terms of service at that CAO position. And that council will have the support of a professional services firm in terms of doing a market evaluation and recruitment to fill that position on a permanent basis. Can I have a motion to move the recommendations? Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I move the council appoint Horacio Galante as interim CAO effective September 29th. And the council engage Alto Partners to conduct a market recruitment process to fill the CAO on a permanent basis.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Any discussion or debate on the motion? If not, I'll just say that I would recognize that Mr. Galante has been an important member of our team, and our entire leadership team is highly capable of supporting the organization as we go through this transition. Look forward to all of our directors supporting the organization as we head into some important times in terms of budget and other things, but appreciate the fact that we have a great team that's highly capable of stepping up across the board. Any other discussion or debate? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Galante, for letting your name stand and stepping up to do that service for us. We'll move into committee business, and first is item 9.1, the Community Living Committee from August 28th. Whose set of minutes is that? Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I would move that Council approve the minutes of the Community Living Committee meeting held Tuesday, August 28th.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Are there any errors or omissions that we need to correct before we adopt them? Seeing nobody ringing in, I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. Just one piece of business coming out of that Community Living Committee meeting is Arctic Winter Games had a request that we would request that we could bid for the Winter Games in 2022, And to that extent, I would move that council direct the mayor to write a letter to the County of Grande Prairie, MD of Greenview, and other regional municipalities, inviting them to consider joining the City of Grande Prairie in submitting a bid for the 2022 Arctic Winter Games.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing nobody ringing in, then I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen, anything else to highlight from that set of minutes?
Well, there's a few things to highlight from that set of minutes, but just wanted to put a shout out to our regional partners. We always work better together, so I look forward to the potential of working together with them for the Arctic 2022 Winter Games bid, and hopefully they will receive that and well, because if the Alberta Summer Games is any indication, and all the other things we've done together in the community, we seem to do it better when we're together on this. But as far as the other things that came up at the Community Living Committee meeting, we had a Director's Service Area update. Obviously, we talked about the Collision Reporting Center and the ribbon cutting. We also discussed the CKC grandstands potentially opening, but it has been postponed until the fire hydrants are installed at the location. So it was supposed to open on August 30th, but that was changed. We also had expression of interest that we've put out into the community, an update on that regarding the naming rights for the CKC Field and Grandstands, the Bear Creek Outdoor Pool, and the Twin Ice Arenas. They were accepted right up until August 31st, which was my birthday, so hopefully somebody put in a good birthday present to the City of Grande Prairie on my behalf. To name it after their business, not after me, of course. But it's always nice when the city has those community partners to play in it. We also had an update on the Opioids Task Force. Had they met regarding the finalization of a needle resource guide and their next steps for developing the community plan on the Opioid Task Force, and filming for public awareness campaign will be continuing, and they received the grants to do so. Events and entertainment, we received an update on the Helen A. Rice Plaza brick return, and we had a terrific response from the public. Over 1,000 of those bricks were claimed in the community for the people who chipped in to help create the Canada Games Arena and what is now known as Revolution Place. I think I'll gloss over the rest, but we also had a couple delegations come in. Grande Prairie Council for Lifelong Learning had a presentation, as well as Big Brothers and Big Sisters and the Grande Prairie Hospice Palliative Care Society. All in all, it was a great meeting, and if you check out in the minutes, we also had a lot of in-camera discussion regarding important matters in the community, but those are all contained in our minutes of our council package if the community is interested in those items. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. That'll take us to item 9.2, the Infrastructure and Protective Services Committee meeting from September 4th. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I move that Council receive the minutes of the Infrastructure and Protective Services Committee meeting held Tuesday, September 4th, as presented.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. Any errors or omissions to correct before we adopt them, Council? I see nobody ringing in, so I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Clayton. Councillor Minhas. Okay, Councillor Minhas declares a conflict of interest with respect to item 9.2.1, business license bylaw retail cannabis, and Councillor Minhas will leave the council chambers. And I would also note that Councillor Eunice Friesen has been on hold, waiting in accordance with the city's procedure bylaw. She gave notice that she wished to vote on this item. Councillor Friesen, are you there?
Hi there. Yes, I am now, and my apologies for everyone hearing me scold my daughter's puppy when he went after something. Wasn't so. Yeah. Anyway, here I am.
No worries. Thanks very much, Councillor Friesen. So, just in terms of process, before we move into the motion, Councillor Friesen and I will ask during discussion debate if you have any debate specifically, so you'll have an opportunity to get in. And when we come to voting, we will do the vote of the in-chambers council members first. We'll ask for Councillor Friesen to register her vote verbally, and then we'll display the results of the vote. So just so everybody knows the process that will follow tonight. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that Council give first reading to Bylaw C-106 for I, being an amendment to the business license bylaw.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. So this is a motion for first reading, and subsequent to that is when we'd be able to do discussion debate on second reading. So I'll call for the vote on first reading. Please vote. Councillor Friesen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, Councillor Friesen votes yes on first reading. That motion carries unanimously to pass first reading. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that council gives second reading to bylaw C-1064I as presented. Can I speak to this motion now?
Absolutely.
Speaking to the motion, I think that everyone's in the room and outside of the room who's been watching this is aware that we've had a very fulsome conversation in regards to cannabis. It's taken place for probably almost 3 years now with past council and administration, and we've done a very fulsome job and thorough job of looking at the opportunities of what this presents to our community. There's a couple issues here, in my opinion. Many of the concerns of people are warranted in the sense that this is a very emotional conversation to have. People are torn on whether or not cannabis as a whole should be legalized, and I can appreciate that concern. However, that decision is completely out of our hands, and what we're here to do today is to discuss how this affects and impacts our community. There's a couple items of safety that continue to be addressed and regards to the number of licenses. This opportunity in regards to safety is truly a good opportunity, in my opinion. We will have people that are cannabis users will be allowed to buy cannabis from a government-regulated association, which is considered a safe product. It's not going to be purchased in a back alley for those who choose to partake in it. And it's a good way to control the substance in regards to how those who take the substance are affected by it. In regards to the free market opportunity, I think that Grande Prairie has always shown itself as an entrepreneurial city, and that this will allow to continue with that trend. Given the circumstances that we've put forward in the bylaw itself, and right now with 15 potential licenses, if the opening of this were to be unlimited, I think realistically the potential of many additional licenses is unrealistic, considering the radius to other stores within each other and the proximities of things such as schools and medical facilities. It's my belief with discussion with administration over the last few years that we're probably only going to get less than a handful of more licenses where there's actually space for these people to conduct business. I encourage council to support having second reading, as I think that we have done a thorough job. Administration has done a good job on educating council and as well as educating the community in open and fair and honest discussion. And I encourage council to support second reading.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you. I appreciate the points that Councillor Clayton has made, and I may repeat a couple of them, but I'd like to give you my full perspective on this. So we as councillors have received a very large number of letters protesting the possibility that we would be removing the cap set on the number of cannabis retailers in the city. And a few of them say specifically that they are against the legalization of cannabis in the first place, and go on to suggest that having a cap on the number of outlets in the city is appropriate to help curb the effects of legalization. I'm sure everybody knows by now that I too am firmly against the legalization of cannabis. However, I have 2 points to make on the subject. The first comes from my attendance at the recent overdose awareness event at Muskosipi Park. We heard from 2 mothers who had lost their adult sons to fentanyl overdoses. I didn't expect to get this. These are young men, 20 and 27, who were unfortunately consuming drugs, and they died because of an accidental overdose of a drug that they were unaware that they were taking. This is one of the risks of people buying on the black market, drugs that may or may not be laced with fentanyl. By listening to these tragic tales delivered by devastated mothers, I am more convinced of the need to curb the black market. Some people are simply not going to stop buying cannabis. Come October, they will have a source that they can trust to be safe, or at least as safe as an intoxicating drug can be. Doesn't matter how many outlets there are in Grande Prairie, all of the people who want cannabis will patronize one store or another regardless of location. There won't be fewer sales of cannabis if there are fewer stores to get it from. My second point is this. When I first proposed putting a cap on the number of retailers in the first year, I feared the unknown, that there might be issues arising that we hadn't yet anticipated, and I believed I was offering up a way to ease the possible burden of enforcement services as this brand new market developed. A number of the potential retailers who were unsuccessful at the lottery subsequently made presentations to council outlining the organizational and financial challenges they faced. They made investments in good faith with no indication that their well-planned entry into the market might be blocked by something as arbitrary as a cap and a lottery. If this had occurred to me earlier, I would not have proposed a cap. It's simply unfair, and I don't believe council has a heart for stifling well-intentioned entrepreneurship. In answering a concern raised by many residents, I want to be clear that my position has nothing at all to do with generating revenue for the city by allowing more retail outlets to open. I still have many reservations about the federal government's decision to legalize the sale and consumption of cannabis, and the provincial government's decision to allow its use by youth aged 18 to 24. However, given the cards we've been dealt, I believe we have to do all the right things, and for the reasons I've stated, I urge council to support this bylaw amendment. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Blackburn. Councillor Platt.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I guess I'm echoing a lot of the comments that Councillor Clayton and Councillor Blackburn have made. One of the things that was originally I was supporting of a cap, and I guess for me, I thought as a business owner, I don't think the market should have more than 15. I think that's probably all the market will survive. So I'm cautioning everybody, if this goes ahead tonight, that's thinking about getting into this, to make sure you've done your research and to make sure you're not putting your house on the line, because if it doesn't work, there was a reason I didn't want to do a cap, is I honestly think if 20 or 30 stores open up, some of you will fail. And so that was my reservation. Having said that, I don't like the idea of our fate of a business owner being decided by a lottery. And I really have a hard time with, I think the best operators should be the ones standing in a year, not just the ones that happen to win a lottery. So that was really hard for me. You know, when Councillor Blackburn is getting emotional, it's hard for me too, because I have 2 young daughters, and I think of the horrible thing of losing control when your kids get older and they try to experiment, just like probably a lot of us did when we were younger. I'd like to know if they ever did want to try this, that it's going to come from a legal spot, that it's going to be regulated, and it's going to be controlled, and it's going to be safe. And so for me, that's a big one that I want to make sure that if people are going to experiment with this, that it's a safe opportunity for them to experiment with it. I've just heard too many stories in the last, since this has been a very public thing, to stories just like Councillor Blackburn has said, where it wasn't their intention to go and try a fentanyl, it was their intention to think they were going to try cannabis, and they ended up having fentanyl. And I'm a big believer that this over time will help our opioid problem more than harm it. Although I guess we're all walking into the unknown on this one. I also think there's maybe a little bit of naivety, as I'm learning more in the community, of how many locations are currently serving cannabis. So do we want hundreds of locations doing it out of coffee shops and back alleys and dropping it by people's homes? Or do we want 15 or 20 successful locations? And so my gut keeps coming back to that we just need to let this be, it's a regulated thing, and it's happening whether we like it or not. So we might as well get in front of it, let it be available to consumers where they want it. And so that's why I'll be supporting this.
Thanks very much, Councillor Platt. I see Councillor Bressie in the queue, and I know that Councillor Friesen's on the phone as well, and so I'll just make sure that I'm not closing. I'll enter. I know that council members know my position, but I obviously want to take opportunity to state it. I'm opposed to lifting the cap for the simple fact, as Councillor Blackburn referenced, we cannot know what the outcomes will be of this decision. The federal government can't know, the provincial governments can't know, and at the local level, we absolutely can't know. And so in this sort of situation, I think responsibility of council is to take a cautious approach where we have some opportunity to affect outcomes if we find that we have significantly negative ones. My objection is not a moral objection to the legalization of cannabis, and I would point to an email that we all received today from the Executive Director of HIV North. HIV North is the organization that is focused on harm reduction and is actively applying with the federal government for a supervised consumption site. So in terms of the most liberal approach to drug use that we would likely to find in our community, it's probably from HIV North. And council will have received the letter, email from the Executive Director of HIV North saying she doesn't think that it's a great idea to have more than 15 stores in the first year. So, you know, I would point to that. I would also remind council the presentation that we had when we first discussed this issue from Dr. de Villiers from Alberta Health Services, who is the Chief Public Health Officer, who reminded council that it's sort of like a pendulum of harms, and a public health approach is one that takes away some of the harms of the illicit market, which I think has been referenced very well, but also protects society from the harms of a completely unregulated private market. I'm not saying by any means that we're unregulated. I appreciate that both the federal and provincial governments are trying to do a significant amount of regulation, but I think as council, we don't abdicate our responsibility just because they're doing it. I think we have an opportunity to provide some reasonable regulation as well. And then finally, I would note that in our package, we do have in our council package, the delegation from Modern Leaf that wasn't here in person today does have a letter that was written to council supporting the cap. And so to me, that indicates that at least one aspect of this discussion is that those businesses that were on the one side of the lottery receiving a license in the first year are very supportive, and those that did not receive it in the first year are not supportive, which makes complete sense because there is money at stake. And so I agree that this is not a revenue opportunity for the city of Grande Prairie per se, but I believe that many of the opinions we've heard have been coming from the perspective of a profit motive, which is not unreasonable for a private business, but I think it does inform their concerns in a way that is different than the general public who face many faceted concerns, like we heard in our earlier public hearing, where we heard about concerns about use, about traffic, about perceptions of safety, about aesthetics. And for me, all of those things are things that council needs to say, how would we impact them a year from today? I'm not willing to, I feel strongly that we need to have that tool in our toolbox if something happens that we didn't expect. And just finally, my last little bit before you don't have to hear me say this again, but I would contrast our approach in Grande Prairie with the discussion that I had with the mayors of Moncton and Quebec City. They were both in Grande Prairie for the the Francophone Cities Network meeting, and just in casual conversation, Moncton, a city of 170,000, is going to be served by 2 cannabis retail outlets soon, and Quebec City, with a population of 600,000, will have 2 cannabis outlets, is what they know of right now. So I can't imagine how Grande Prairie needs to have any more than 15 in the first year. And I'm concerned specifically about the reputation that we have. I was surprised to hear the chamber say that they didn't have an opinion on that, because I know the reputation of my community is something that I don't need to be an expert in, because people tell us. And people tell me that they're surprised by the number of liquor stores when they come to Grande Prairie. And I think that demonstrates what an unregulated approach looks like. And so I would encourage council to consider whether we want to have that in another area, specifically cannabis. There you go. Councillor Bressie.
Thank you. I appreciate your thoughts, and I really appreciate you sharing that. It's something I've taken to heart, and I've really been taking to heart as I've had conversations with people both on phone and over coffee and over email who would like to see this cap in place. I get where it's coming from. I will point out that as I've had discussions with them and as I've shared some of the restrictions we have put on place, especially in terms of the land use bylaw and some of the complicating factors going on, I've had a lot say, oh, I didn't realize all of that, and have a different view on the cap, including one executive director that was mentioned earlier. And I know that something that's been brought up is the profit motive and profit on this. And usually I am a person who thinks we should be open for business and we should be a very business-friendly city. Also, I'm somebody who, as an adoptive Grande Prairiean, gets really angry every time I hear something bad about the city. I'm really disappointed. I'm somebody who wants to fiercely guard a reputation. But in this situation, that's not my concern at all. I don't have any interest in seeing the city of Grande Prairie profit from this industry or improve our bottom lines from it. In fact, I'm clearly on the record as saying that I think we should be directing some money that we get from this towards education to help mitigate some of the social ills. Also, I don't really have a lot of sympathy for a business that took a gamble on potential bylaws and signed a lease before us as council had ever even had a first reading of a bylaw. If they lost on that gamble, well, that's a gamble they took. That's part of doing business, and that doesn't persuade me at all. What does persuade me is a month and a half ago, I had to bury one of my teenagers that came to a Young Life program. And I remember him fondly from 4 years ago when I had to flush some cannabis down the toilet at camp because he brought his camp. And I had a long conversation with him 4 years ago about the road he was going down. And he never found a healthier, more positive road. And it ended a couple months ago. And he's not the first kid I've had to bury. I hope to God he's the last kid that I have to bury. And that's too common of a story here. And it's really clear to me that what's going on in our community in terms of approach to drugs and approach to our social policies, it's not working. People are dying in our streets. And I don't know what impact legalization is going to have. I don't know if I support it overall, but it's coming, and I think it's going to have some positives for our community. It's also going to have some negatives. I think our job is to do the best we can to overcome the negatives with the positives that could come out of it. I don't think a cap does that. I think the restrictions we've made that are quite a bit more restrictive than the provincial framework in terms of consumption and in terms of where sites can be located, those are going to make a big difference. But in terms of this cap, I don't see it making a difference. And the reason I don't see it making a difference is, I don't know if we're going to have more than 15 of these anyways. We heard last time we talked about this from retailers saying that they're already having troubles finding locations, even with only 15 licenses out there. We also have a license that Mayor Given referenced that's in our agenda package with somebody saying, we don't know if we can compete in this market if there's more than 15 of these. I think that's a reason that we had so many applications, was because people are looking at us as a market and saying, oh, there's a cap here. Maybe this is a place where we could compete more. I don't think I could be wrong, but I don't think that even after we remove the cap, we're going to have much more than 15, if we even have that many survive here in Grande Prairie. And if that's the case, I would hate to see the 15 or less who are here be here just because they won a random lottery. I think the provincial government is limiting how they can compete based on price. It's limiting how they can compete based on branding. When I'm sitting down with retailers, I'm hearing them say that they're competing based on things like educating their customers and having knowledgeable staff and providing a discreet service and having a secure location, and the things that I think will mitigate the harms that this industry will do to our community. And those are the retailers that I want to win, not the ones that got lucky in a lottery. I also think that the black market, it concerns me. The black market will sell to minors. The black market will sell at any day of the night. It'll sell in a high school parking lot, and who knows what's going on there. Well, I think one of the positives that could come out of legalization is seeing that black market contract. And I want to give us the best chance of seeing that positive here, which I don't think happens with this cap. So I understand the sentiment of wanting a cap, and while I certainly share the goals of seeing less use in our community and less normalization in our community, I just don't see the difference that this cap's going to make in availability and in normalization. And I don't think that it's going to help our youth use less if it's encouraging the black market and if it's not encouraging retailers who will go out of their way to educate customers. So as much as I'm leery about legalization, I don't think that this cap helps, and I fear it might do more harm than good. As has been referenced, we don't know what's going to happen, but we can just do the best we can. And I'd point out, we also don't know what happens if we constrain this market and what the unintended consequences of that are. So I'll be voting against the cap today.
Thanks, Councillor Bressy. Just to be clear, that means you'd be voting in support of the motion. Councillor O'Toole.
I'd like to thank Dylan Bressy for speaking. That's some good valid points there. Thank you. I will also be supporting the voting against the cap, so I'll be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor Clayton.
Mayor Given, just to close on this, I think...
I'll just check and make sure that Councillor Friesen has an opportunity if she'd like to enter the debate. Councillor Friesen?
Thank you, Mayor Given. My fellow councillors this evening have spoken very eloquently and very much from the heart, with a great deal of thought put into this matter. And I respect those who were kind of on this page from the beginning and even perhaps more so, I respect those who have come to a change of heart on this. We don't know what's going to happen with this, but what I can tell you from my heart is that, I'm not sure it's the best thing in the world to legalize marijuana throughout our country. But one of my first thoughts was, when I heard that it would be legal, was that now those who do use, my friends and family who do use, will have a safe place to purchase, so that I know, they know that they are using a product that isn't potentially and inadvertently going to kill them. I don't think that the fear of having 50 cannabis stores like we have 50 liquor stores, I think it's highly unlikely that will come to pass. I feel that I'm not sure that we're going to end up with 15 anyway to begin with, and I feel that we should give every person who wants to try to compete in this business the opportunity to do so. And as the market finds itself, those who compete well, it's a fairly level playing field. They're not going to compete on price, for instance. So those who are able to compete well and provide service along with the product will survive, and perhaps those others will not. But I don't think that putting a cap on is going to do much in terms of normalization or preventing normalization. I think that's going to happen anyway. A number of the people that did write in, I did read every email. I responded to a few of them just asking for more information or more, a number came in just saying, I'm in favor of keeping the cap at 15. And when I asked about what the concerns were, it was a lot along that availability to use. Well, you know what? Our youth are getting it now, and what they're getting is an unsafe product. If we can help to, if we can quash some of that availability of unsafe product because there are fewer black market dealers out there, then I think that's a good thing. Certainly there are going to be friends who are 18 who are going to be able to buy and share with their friends who are under 18. But again, we know it's a safe product. A lot of the other concern I heard was around use of the product and where it can be used and that sort of thing. And I would really encourage those people with those sorts of concerns to have a look at the bylaw of that governs use of or where people can smoke, that sort of thing, and approach council under that bylaw rather than the retail bylaw. I think we do like to be open for business. We do like to have good businesses, and the best way to ensure that we have good businesses in Grande Prairie that are supportive of our city's goals and are doing a good job for our city is to open it up to individuals who are in for the long haul and wanting to contribute to the overall health of the city. And I did hear that in spades in many of the hopeful retailers that presented to City Council. So I will be supporting the motion today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Friesen. Councillor Thiessen.
Well, I actually wasn't going to speak after Clyde spoke, so I whispered in his ear and I said, oh, geez, I can't say anything more. Honestly, from the beginning, I have to say I was right on board with Mayor Bill Given, that I thought that a cap was necessary. I started out as 10, I moved to 15. And today I find myself moving to relieve that cap as well. The big reason why is from the education amongst my council cohorts, my belief that legalizing marijuana makes it safer for our kids, and especially the courage shown by Councillor Blackburn, someone who's totally against it, that says, you know what, maybe we did the wrong thing and I'm willing to relook my stance. We don't see that a lot. I I didn't know what else I could really throw in there, but then I was looking down at our strategic plan, And there's two things that really jumped out at me and something that we should consider as we vote yes or no. One is under the economy, and it's one of those pillars under the economy that says we will maintain quality regulatory standards to provide for an attractive, clean, well-maintained, and safe community. And I believe that with the regulations that our planning team has so thoughtfully put in place in consultation with council and in consultation with higher levels of government, I do believe that we're not going to see, I guess, an expropriation of a large quantity of stores. I know we had 27 potential business licenses that could go out. I don't believe we're going to get there. I was very much in line with Councillor Platt, where my idea of the cap was to protect business owners from potentially losing their shirt, and then it just goes to big business anyways. I want the small market guy to survive, but I do believe that our administration has been very thoughtful and very prescriptive enough that I don't know if it's going to be possible for, as Councillor Clayton said, any more than the 15 to potentially 20 to establish themselves in our community. The second is under service. And under our service pillar, it says that we enable and enhance trust, transparency, and adaptability by ensuring accountability, integrity, efficiency, best practices, and innovations in all operations. The simple legalization of cannabis is innovative in itself, and how we deal with it is our own innovation, and every community has to deal with that. Sometimes Grande Prairie seems like the Wild West, like old Texas, and the number of liquor stores are there. But as a council, we have the opportunity in the future to open the books on all licensed retail stores, alcohol or cannabis in the future. And I know we will be undertaking this review in a year specifically on cannabis, so I'm not too worried about that. But I really want to sit on trust and integrity because people came forward in our well-meaning in the process of our lottery, hopeful that they would get their number drawn. And I only say that because even though I wasn't in support of a lottery to determine who got the best one, that is what we laid out. And some people had the trust that if they put their best business foot forward, maybe karma would shine on them and they would pull the lucky lottery ball. But I don't think we break that trust by being adaptable and being able to move on our stance. In fact, I think that improves our integrity. It doesn't make us wishy-washy. This is something brand new for our entire community, and I believe that we should have some steps forward and some steps back, and sometimes to pause and sometimes to run forward and sometimes to listen and perceive what the community is actually asking us. And I think our business community is asking us for the opportunity and the chance to thrive in this business if they can. I'm not sure that all of them will last the test of time. And I know that our community members who are concerned are saying take a measured and controlled approach. As far as integrity goes, sometimes when we grasp onto something too tightly, that's where we lose it. And that's where I think Councillor Bressy makes a really great point about not limiting the cap and maybe opening up the door for less harmful effects to the people that are there. Not by normalizing it, but really by providing the opportunity to completely phase out the black market like moonshine is practically gone years and years and years ago. I'd like my child, maybe children one day, who knows, if there's a lucky lady out there who wants to sire any, I'm not saying, but what I am saying is that if they do choose to try this at some point in life, I'd rather them try the regulated, controlled substance rather than the moonshine substance. So for the greater safety of my children and for the future of our community and for the better business sense of everything, I'm voting against my original vote, which is to remove the cap entirely. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Clayton to close.
Thank you, Mayor Given. For all the reasons mentioned earlier and from everyone who contributed in the conversation and from everybody who submitted communication to council, I applaud the thorough conversation. But ultimately, I encourage council to think about the fact that it's not council's role to prevent an entrepreneur from having a dream. If somebody has a bad business plan, it's either theirs or their investors or possibly the bank's role to stop a bad business opportunity. So I think that council's role, in my opinion, I've said this all along, is that it's council's role to enable people to be successful, and whether or not they want to be a small business owner, that is their right. So I encourage council to vote in favor of second reading tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. That motion to close. So this is a motion for second reading. I will call for the vote, and Councillor Friesen will come to you before we display the results. Council in the room, please vote. Thank you. Councillor Friesen, how do you vote?
Well, I get the pleasure of actually qualifying how I vote, and it is a resounding yes.
Thanks very much, Councillor Friesen. We'll display everybody else's votes without any commentary, I suppose. It's unfortunate to be in the room. That motion carries with one opposed. And we'll move on. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that Council have third reading of bylaw C-106 4I at this meeting.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. As with our previous bylaw, this is a motion to have third and final reading here tonight. In order for us to do that, we must have all three this motion must pass unanimously. I'll just say, as the person that objects to the content, I will vote against third reading, but I will not vote against having third reading. Obviously, there's a majority of council that's in support, and I don't see any reason to cause any additional delay. I don't see a benefit because the majority, the support from council is pretty strong on this position, so I don't think delaying an extra couple of weeks provides any benefit. Is there any other discussion or debate as to the merits of having third and final reading? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Councillor Friesen, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Thank you. That motion carries unanimously, so we can move on to third and final reading. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. It gives me great pleasure to give third reading to bylaw C-106 4I, being an amendment to the business license bylaw.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. Any discussion or debate on third and final reading? Seeing nobody ringing in, I will call for the vote. Councillor Friesen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Friesen votes in favor, and that motion does carry. That concludes all of our committee business. Or Councillor,
Councillor
Clayton, was there anything else that you want to highlight
Sure.
from that sentiment?
Thank
We'll
you.
call in Councillor Minhas, who's been waiting patiently out back.
So thank you to everyone that's here tonight in regards to this. And again, thank you for all the hard work and communication that was put into that bylaw. A couple other things happened at the last Infrastructure and Protective Services meeting. A couple of highlight things I wanted to mention. In regards to crime prevention, the GP and auto theft took place a few weeks ago, and a total of 247 vehicles notices were placed on vehicles. These were vehicles that were identified through crime prevention of easy targets for theft. 91 were easy targets, and 156 were hard targets for theft. So it was a great little sort of test for the market. And if you were one of those people that got a note on your car saying, hey, by the way, your vehicle could have been stolen, hopefully you've learned from that. There was other updates from Director Galante, as well as road rehabilitation and updates from Mr. Montihoyen in regards to the downtown project. But I think that's all I'm going to touch on today. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. I don't believe we had any items of correspondence, and we had no public delegations during our delegation portion. We did have during our public hearing portion. Sorry, that didn't have their business dealt with. Obviously, the chamber presented, and that was related to the item 9.2.1. We have no notice of motion this evening. I think that takes us to council member reports. Council, I neglected to ask if any council members had reports from external boards and commissions, and so we'll do this sort of visually. I see Councillor O'Toole had a couple, and I see Councillor Blackburn ring in, so we'll go to Councillor O'Toole first and come back to you, Councillor Blackburn. Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, Mayor Given, just this last weekend, we had the Francophone Francophilie Network meeting here in Grande Prairie. There was representatives from all over North America. Kind of highlight a couple of them was from down in Louisiana. We had 2 representatives from down there. We had people from Quebec, and we had people from New Brunswick and Manitoba and all over Alberta. And it was great conversation, great team building, you might say. But also there was good seminars and programs that people could attend and tour the city. And we also took them out to the Grande Prairie, or the Dinosaur Museum out in Wembley. Overall, I think it was a fantastic success. I'd like to thank a couple of people on the team. Rebecca Lee, outstanding work that she has done with working together with the ACFA. And I'd like to thank Michelle Marguerite, who spearheaded that and did all the translation for us and got us some extra help when we needed to. But I did talk to majority of the people that were in attendance, because I was there quite a bit. and they said it was very successful. They found we went leaps and bounds. Also, the one night we had an entertainment, and I know that Moncton, New Brunswick next year is looking at trying to get those same entertainers because they were fantastic. So that was the one I wanted to talk about. And then also we had the Alberta Bilingual Municipalities Association. We had an hour-and-a-half meeting that we normally do a teleconference call every couple of months, and this was the first time that the whole entire board got to meet each other face to face. Because of the elections last year, there was a whole bunch of change, but it sounds like we're probably going to get 3 more cities or municipalities on board probably by the end of the summer for sure. So I think that's my update for both committees.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. I'll move next to Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I attended a meeting of the Grande Prairie Regional Tourism Association Board on the 29th of August, and there's only a couple of things that I would like to highlight. One is that they asked me to be sure that that the association is in the queue for a funding increase in the 2019 budget, and I assured them that that's well in hand. Whether or not we approve that increase is, of course, up to council, but at least it will be discussed. The association was asked by Travel Alberta this year to do more in the way of outreach so that they were counseling visitors in more locations than just at our travel center. And so they were required to make at least 20 outreach visits. And they were successful at that by attending other events around the region, especially in Grande Prairie, things like the Folk Festival, the Street Performers Festival, and so on. And I think that the effort has been quite good for us in terms of the number of additional contacts they were able to make, and I'm sorry I don't have those numbers. The other thing that I'll just mention very briefly is that the funding and cooperative marketing that comes into the association is being looked at very closely, and it looks like that there are some opportunities for additional market funding thanks to the efforts of the marketing fund committee and also the work of our executive director. So things are looking up for Grande Prairie Regional Tourism Association.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Councillor Blackburn. Council, is there any other reports from external agencies, boards, and commissions? No. Seeing nothing else, we'll start with Councilmember Roundtable, and we'll start with Councillor Plott.
Well, I'm going to make it easy for everybody else because I have to admit I don't have anything to really highlight on. As I looked through my calendar, I looked through it twice going, did I really not do anything the last few weeks? But I have to be honest, I spent a lot of time with family, friends, and my businesses. It was fun to see the kids back to school and getting some normalcy around the house. So that's all I can report at this point.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Plott. Councillor Blackburn?
Thank you again, Mayor Given. I've already mentioned my attendance at the International Overdose Awareness event, and I will just reiterate that as a tremendously educational event for me, and I'm sure for others, and I would recommend that people in this community look for that event and attend it when it comes up again next August, because there's a lot going on in this community in relation to drugs and drug overdoses that we're simply unaware of. And for organizations to be recognized for the work that they do towards awareness, and for us to hear stories from people who have been affected, either, well, the stories that we heard the other night had to do with parents whose children have been affected, and we also heard from 2 people who are trying to recover from addictions to drugs. And boy, it just opens your eyes. The other thing that I will mention briefly is having gone to the reception for Wendy Bosch as the new Downtown Association manager. Very nice event, was very well supported, lots of people there to welcome Wendy into the role, and I'm also looking forward to the event that will say farewell to the current DTA manager, Helen Rice. That's all I'll mention for now.
Thanks very much, Councillor Blackburn. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I had written down 3, but Councillor Blackburn had taken 2. But I will just throw my 2 cents. This is my second year coming to the International Overdose Awareness Day. And it is an incredible event. It is very moving. I saw members of Councillor Blackburn, Councillor Bressy, and very proud to be a member of City Council, especially hearing our Mayor, Bill Given, speak in regards to the impact that this has on our community and how we need to address it. I think, to quote him, with courage and empathy. It just shows a testament to his leadership and to the leadership that we all rally around, whether we agree with him or not on different subjects. But I was definitely proud to be a member of council that day, sitting with the people who were most affected. Also on Wednesday the 5th, I got to give greetings as Mayor Given, but Deputy Mayor Thiessen, I guess it was, for the Downtown Association's welcoming of Wendy Bosch into the fold at the Sawmill. There's lots of members from the Chamber there, as was also presented by the Chamber of Commerce, and several members of council. I think we all were there. Most of us were there. Anyways, it was really a good time. And as Councillor Blackburn alluded to, I would like to invite everybody to the outgoing Executive Director of the Downtown Association, former Councillor Helen Rice. Her going away party's at Better Than Fred's on Thursday, 5 o'clock, September the 13th. It's not a secret in this room, and hopefully... Not now. That's not a secret in Grande Prairie. Let's go party. The more the merrier. That's what Helen always says anyways. And finally, September 6th, I had the opportunity to attend the Francophone Francophile meeting and conference. And I just wanted to put a shout out to our city staff. I had written down Rebecca, as well as Michelle Marguerite. And Councillor O'Toole for his steadfast dedication to the event and ensuring that that Grande Prairie put on a good face. And he was a great host. Everywhere he went and every person he talked to, I know I saw a smile on their face in some way, shape, or form. They were laughing. And there's even tears in the house for another former Kevin who used to sit on council, who deserves his props, who really lobbied for this conference to be here. Even got a mention from the mayor of Lafayette, Louisiana, and I think that really choked him up. And then he literally started crying when Bill again pointed to him and mentioned Councillor McLean. He was very emotional and very proud to be there. So 2 great teammates working to create a great event. Kevin Square in action again. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be a part of it.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Bressy.
Well, thank you, Mayor Given. I'm sad that you didn't pick me first because I had a feeling a bunch of us would be talking about the Overdose Awareness Day. That's an event I want to highlight as well. And I love that it was put on by Moms Stop the Harm, and it reminded me of how important organizations are in terms of combating these. Another event that Councillors Blackburn and Thiessen and I had attended was a pancake breakfast for FASD Awareness Day. And that was a great reminder to me that there's great social harms coming from substance abuse community, whether they're legal or not legal. And seeing all the organizations there was a great reminder for me that no amount of regulations, nothing the government does is going to combat these social harms in our community. It really does take a community of people and a community of organizations rallying around these. So I love our role is that we get to learn what organizations are out there. And I love that I get to learn more and more about how to support them. Speaking of supporting important organizations, today I got to join the United Way board at Earl's for lunch for their Red Menu kickoff. And tomorrow they are launching their campaign for the season. They're hoping to raise $1 million over the next couple of months in order to turn poverty to possibility, build strong communities, successful kids, build healthy communities, and create tools for school. And they do that through some of their direct things, such as stuffing hundreds of school bags to send with kids to school filled with supplies. They also do that through funding a lot of organizations in our community that are doing important work. So over the next couple of months, I'd encourage you guys to go to Earl's or Mad Hatter's or Better Than Fred's or Cards for lunch, order off the Red Menu, and some of those proceeds will be going towards the United Way.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bressy. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. Just going to highlight a couple items. On September 3rd, I attended the Grand Prairie Cricket First Provincial Tournament. Mayor Given was there as well, spoke, and Grand Prairie beat Wood Buffalo. And just give you a bit of an outline on the history of the cricket team. They started about 5 years ago. We found them a pitch. They had not enough to make a team. Within the year, they had 2 teams, and now they've got 5 teams, and they've won the provincial title twice. So, and they weren't accepted into the Cricket Association by the province. They had to have somebody else back them, which was Wood Buffalo. And so there's a dream come true, and it's awesome. Also, I attended the Step and Stride Parkinson Association of Alberta walk, and Mayor Given was there as well. And I did do the 5K, and I'm going to say a number. I'm not too sure exactly how exact that number is, so I'll sort of blend it a little bit. It's over $14,000 that they raised. So it was a good attendance, and I made it. So there you go. No. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Toole. Councillor Clayton.
Thanks, Mayor Given. Anything that I attended has already been mentioned, so I just wanted to bring up a couple things that are on the agenda for our community in the next little bit here. A personal note, a couple Saturdays ago, my family was biking through Muskosipi Park, and there was a parks worker around the new skateboard park, and they said, and my kids were really excited about this, and they said, you come back in an hour, the fence will be down, you can go in the skate park. So they called their friends that also live in the neighborhood, and they got to be the first kids that skated in the skate park, and I tell you, they were pretty pumped. So I encourage anybody who has children or is interested in skate park type activities to come down to Muskosipi this Saturday at 1 o'clock. Also on Sunday, the Terry Fox Run, and people who are aware of Terry's story, currently to date, the Terry Fox event has raised over $700 million for the fight to the cure to cancer, and it's celebrated in over 25 countries. So if you can pledge somebody, volunteer for the event, participate in the event, I encourage you to do so, and it's this coming Sunday. And one last note that I'll touch on, just because we don't have council between now and then, next Tuesday is a food bank drive. I encourage you to build a team of 4 or 5 people. You can register online through the Rotary organizations of Grande Prairie, have a Facebook page where you can sign up your team. If you're not able to come out and volunteer that night, encourage you to leave food at your doorstep in a bag. If somebody, for some reason, there's not enough volunteers to pick it up, you can bring it down to Salvation Army yourself. And so there's many, many ways to participate, and I encourage everybody to do so. Based on the weather we've seen to date, it's going to be a cold, long winter, and there is as much need as always, if not more, for this year. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. Councillor Minhas.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I think most of the things have been said, but I had a pleasure time to go to bring a new Canadian citizenship, and that was a very interesting day for me. There are 308 people get new citizenship around the Peace District, and that was one very good thing. It reminded me, because I'm immigrant and I got citizenship in 1977. There was only 13 people that time. So it was more diversified, and the interesting part was the judge was a very great man. He was our army retired, and I forgot his name, it was French name, but anyhow, he had 25 countries visited and did the overall army thing, what we knew, peace army and all the situation. I talked to him maybe 20 minutes, because he took me on the side and we discussed a lot. And also the church and I went to, there was 74, and they were out of 29 countries. Before that, he said it was 31. And then one was 27. That different countries that people get immigration. And that, I feel so good, when I came here in 74, a lot of people don't want to come to North. And now our economy is proving, and people need to come, and they're young people, and we need young people in Canada. And it's kind of very pleasure to have. Thank you, Mayor Given, give me the chance that day to tell me to go there. It was great. And then I went to the Chamber of Mixture, and that was other good thing was in meeting monthly, and there are lots of people. It was good talk there, and lots of people talking about our economy is moving ahead, and that was good thing. And then Windy Wash was other one to replacing our Helen. She's retiring, but she done the great job for this community and all northern Alberta. Feel for it. That's about it I did, and some other place.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Minhas. I'll just highlight a couple. Councillor Minhas, thanks very much for speaking to the citizenship ceremony. I had the opportunity to go to the first session in the morning, and it was great to see so many new Canadians sworn in and the pride that they had being sworn in. But thanks for that reflection on the difference from your ceremony in 77 and the small numbers then to the large numbers of people that we see attracted to our region. That's a good reminder. I also attended on Wednesday the 29th what was an outcome of the joint regional interest session that we had out of the Dinosaur Museum quite a while ago with all the other municipalities in the region. One of the ideas that came out of that was that the chief elected officials, the mayors and Reeve, and the chief administrative officers, the city managers and county managers, town managers, meet on a more regular basis. And so this is the first meeting of that group, and we look forward to making that a more regular occurrence. I also had the opportunity to attend the opening of the Seven Generations Energy Golf Tournament. I've had an opportunity to go over the years a number of times into golf sometimes, but certainly appreciate the opportunity to go and thank Seven Generations for their effort in organizing that tournament and for all their industry partners for coming to support it. My understanding is that over the 6 years of the tournament now, they've raised approximately $2 million, which is just incredible amount of community support. And so, that isn't 7Gen themselves donating that directly, but their commitment and willingness to work with their industry partners and suppliers and encourage them to come has just really done a significant thing for the community. They had originally started with a commitment of $1 million to the hospital foundation towards a new hospital. And they've been able to double that, and now they're diversifying, and in the future years they're going to be supporting Grande Prairie Regional College. And so great to see 7Gen supporting our community like that. Later on in the day, I was attending at the Francophone and Francophile Cities Network meetings and had an opportunity to take the mayors of Quebec City, Moncton, New Brunswick, and Lafayette, Louisiana, and Opelousas, Louisiana, out to meet the CEO of Seven Generations Energy and discuss the resource sectors we see it here and its importance globally and across Canada. It was a great dialogue, and it was just a good, lucky opportunity that both events were happening at the same time and that the mayors were interested in going out to visit. And really briefly, I want to add my thanks to Rebecca Lee and on staff and our ASIFA chapter, who just did a fantastic job of putting on an event that we can all be very, very proud of as Grande Prairie residents. The last council, I think, when we got involved in the network, the Francophone and Francophile Cities Network, we sort of did it as an aspect of what was in it for us, thinking about the opportunities in economic development and recruitment of labor force and potentially tourism. And I have to say that was a good outcome. I mean, if we're able to bring 100 people that wouldn't have otherwise come to Grande Prairie, that's economic development right there. And the expense for us to do that was, set participation and sending maybe a council member to some of the previous events. But the thing that I didn't expect was the amount of local pride that this would generate. Regularly throughout the event, Grande Prairie residents were coming up and saying, "I am so proud of Grande Prairie for having this event. I'm a Francophone resident of this community, and this makes me so proud that we have this here." And so that was something that I completely didn't expect, but is a good reminder that although we may look at something for sort of the economic benefit and all those justifications and reasons that council looked at it before, the amount of pride that something like this instills in our local community and the local population that identifies as Francophone and Francophile was something that we should really be proud of as well. And with that, I think the other events that I attended had already been mentioned, and so we'll call our meeting adjourned. Thank you.